Hello and welcome back to the Cesspool, and welcome back to 25 Days of Christmas. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year, whatever you celebrate. I truly hope that it is a good one. And we are back here on the floor once again. Nothing new there. And we're going to be talking about more old garbage. However, it is not video game related. It's not model train related. It's not camera related. So we've got a new piece of media, or a new discussion general topic. So we're not talking about anything interactive. We are talking about old kids VHS tapes. We are talking about the Real Wheels series, also known as the There Goes a Blank series of VHS tapes that I think these actually were also released as DVDs, but the early ones they're mostly known as VHS tapes that were released between 1993 and 2003. So these were released over a decade, and they were pretty much entirely produced by a guy named Dave Hood, who also was the presenter on all of these videos, and he kind of played a character of himself. Basically, the way these videos worked, they were like between 20 and 30 minutes, if I remember correctly, for all of them. I haven't watched all of these, and the last time I've watched almost any of them was at least 15 years ago, probably longer than that, honestly, at this point. I'm not that old to where I remember these when they were like coming out, but these were a staple for me growing up in the the early 2000s. These were found at every goddamn local library. They were very frequently rented out and put in the VHS combo TV that we had that was set up in this upstairs spare room in my house. And it was like a 9-inch little, it wasn't portable, but, it was those tiny ass little CRTs where it was a combination with a VHS player. And quite literally, like, if you were putting the tape in this way, the TV maybe went out like this much further. This is entirely me just like talking about nostalgia. But anyway, so they made these between 1993 and 2003. And they are kind of a really interesting look at educational programming, I suppose you would say. Especially from the 90s. They're very dated now, obviously. But for the most part, the information that are displayed in these tapes, and I guess, again, DVDs by the end of it, were, they pretty much hold up today. It's all about transportation, different types of vehicles, the people who operate them, the people who work on them. It's about the transportation industry to an extent, and obviously they made a lot of these. So after you get trains, cars, planes, boats, how many different vehicles are there? Well, they just kept getting a little bit more specific. They would go from trucks to fire trucks, garbage trucks. Well, let's find out what other kind of truck. Monster trucks. Like, they would just kind of do mail trucks. I don't believe they did. I don't think it was mail trucks. It was like delivery vehicles or something like that. Again, that kind of thing would have been towards the end, where they kind of ran out of basic things, and they were just like, okay, I guess we'll just do variations of the same thing over and over again. But they were a nice little showcase of the different jobs that people do, and what the jobs that these vehicles would have served, in society. And again, this is There Goes a Train is, at least as far as I'm aware, one of the most well-known of these tapes. That and There Goes a Plane. I think There Goes a Plane is probably the funniest, or I remember it being the funniest, like, as a very little kid. I remember There Goes a Plane being like the funniest. I loved There Goes a Train the most because I'm a train guy, so I thought this was amazing, and I laughed at all Dave's stupid jokes because he would write these, he would direct these. It really was a one-man show, and there was a second presenter who they introduced later in this series. because there technically is like lore to these where they do follow like a sequence as far as I understand. And they did introduce a second presenter who I believe her name was like Becky. And I don't remember if she in real life was like Dave's wife or whatever. They didn't like specify that in the video. She was just another character. But I'm pretty sure she was like his wife at the time or something. I'm not 100% sure. But if I remember correctly, she did, once she was introduced, she was there till the end of the series, which, again, that must have been at least halfway through. So she was there for the good latter half of this series. But in these early ones, like There Goes a Train, it was just Dave. And he was just doing stupid things and goofing off because they would like give him access to like a train museum and he could just do whatever the hell he wants, talk about whatever the hell he wants, give him access to a rail yard. Yeah, see, what's he gonna do? Well, let's just find out. I don't know. I feel like a lot of these times he would just kind of get access to a location and he'd just be like, yeah, that would be kind of funny. Okay, let's do that. It was like, it was very random, and these boxes are unapologetically 90s, these early VHS boxes. And yes, these were also known as live action video for kids. That was another branding that these went for. So I believe by the end of the series they were known as Real Wheels. Originally they were just called like the There Goes a series, but they were also like referred to officially as live action video for kids. That's kind of just a general term. I think it was a branding. Ultimately it was just, it was the There Goes a series. That's what everyone called these damn things. And so besides, Dave goofing off and doing his stupid little shenanigans like stopping a train crash or running around an active aircraft carrier and doing stupid stuff, these videos, I think, left a lasting impression on a lot of young kids. And I think that this type of video, this really genuinely innocent, but also actually educational content for young kids is kind of gone. Especially live action, everything for young kids, and I do really mean like under the age of 7, is really it's kind of garbage now. You look at a lot of these shows, or at this point not even just shows, just like YouTube channels. There's the Coco Melon meme is obviously a big one for very young kids. Like, there is just no effort, there's no care, there's really no engagement. It's just there to be absorbed. This era of young kids entertainment was very much like a passion project for a lot of these people, and they weren't the highest quality, but it was a time in the 90s where Dave Hood, this guy, could go up to a railroad museum and be like, hey, I'm producing this TV show. We want to talk about the history of trains and what they do for America and blah blah blah. And the railroad museum would just be like, yeah, okay. They could go up to the ATSF, which was an active railroad at the time. It was right at the end of its life, so this was must have been the early 90s was when this guy came out, because that was right before the ATSF merged with the BN. But they could go up to a major railroad company and be like, hey, can I just walk around your train yard? I want to talk about the industry and blah blah blah. You could go to Amtrak and be like, hey, I'm gonna be talking about passenger trains in America, and they'd be like, yeah, of course. Nowadays it's just like just put Bluey on. I don't know. It's like there's nothing to children's entertainment. It feels like at least young kids entertainment. Now it's just it really is just kind of like slop. Not that everything made for kids now is slop, but it just feels like a lot of the effort and the kind of care and genuineness of this kind of content, where it really is just like a dude making videos almost for fun, but also to be educational and help kids learn about real things in the world, and maybe even help them get inspired to have a job in that industry and learn how it works and really learn. That's really kind of gone, and it's kind of a shame, because These videos are not just incredibly charming. I do think that you could put this on in front of any kid between the ages of 3 and 8. I'd say below 5 really was when I would say I was into these, but and they would find it funny. They would find it engaging. This you know, at that age, it's really hard for things to go out of date unless, you know, they are dated in like a way where it's like, okay, this is kind of like offensive or something like that. I feel like children's entertainment at that age kind of is timeless, and at least in the pre like digital iPad age, I feel like these kind of classic era, and it's weird to even call this classic era, but these kind of classic era VHS tapes and educational materials where they are actually funny and fun and engaging to watch, but also actually informational and educational and maybe even inspiring a little bit. These never go out of style, and it's kind of a lost art. It really kind of is. The piece of children's entertainment that is not kind of sloppy, especially for younger kids, which is really a shame because that's the age where I think people should be putting the most effort into educational entertainment. But yeah, that's I'm sorry, totally just me talking nostalgia out of my ass about how, man, things used to be better. Can we go back to VHS tapes on CRTs and then have a guy just talk in front of a camera in front of a train for 20 minutes? Thank you everybody so much for watching. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year, whatever you celebrate. I truly hope it is a good one. I don't know when the next video will be, except I do. It is tomorrow, and I will see you guys then.